Welcome to the 2022 Empath Summit. I'm Sarah Lopez and I'm host of the summit. And I just want to warmly welcome everyone. It's a beautiful snowy day here in Vermont. And I'm just so excited to have Bennett here. He just led me through this amazing mindfulness meditation, and I'm just so relaxed. I'm just so grateful for your wonderful energy and just calming presence. And welcome, Brandon. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
being
yeah.
here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Sarah. Sarah.
Yeah. So, Brandon, can you tell me a little bit about how highly sensitive men can utilize mindfulness in their life?
Hmm. Yeah, so just it's a really good question. And I think one of the most just simple ways to really utilize a mindfulness practice really starts with the breath. I know you and I we had this brief opportunity before we got started to just drop into our bodies, to drop into our breathing and really quiet down our nervous system a bit. And one of the most simple ways to really do that and be that with highly sensitive men is to focus on the breath and creating more of a internal body awareness, which is something that um, in our society and depending on the rhythm of how fast one may be moving, it can, there can be different aspects where you have to be really intentional on coming back to the body and on coming back to the breath and creating a nice rhythm and nice flow. So hopefully that answers it. But with highly sensitive men in particular, some of the different qualities of maybe becoming overstimulated more easily, of becoming overwhelmed, of being able to take in so much of their environments. At the anchor, the foundation of that is just really being having a higher and more integrated sense of body awareness.
I love that. And what about for a highly sensitive man that feels like they can't take a breath? I know I've worked with a lot of people. When you say take a deep breath, they just can't do it. How could
Mm,
someone just start to tune into their breathing more?
interesting. Um, yeah, I would say one of the most kind of simple ways to really come into the breath is creating a mindfulness practice. And a
Mhm.
mindfulness practice doesn't just be, meditating. If you've never done it before, if it's not something that is a practice that is embodied on a daily basis, being able to experience that. And I mentioned experience it from an experiential level, testing it out, trying different things out over the course of 1 or 2 weeks, just to be able to create a sense of, um, how does that feel inside of your body? How does that feel to allow space and allow time and allow the practice of becoming more intentional with the breath to over time create that sense of, I know you mentioned with the having difficulties to breathe, just like anything else in our body, we're all physiological beings as well. And whenever we do something that we haven't done before, we've never really experienced or experimented with, it may take time for the body to catch up to some of these different patterns. And by creating a rhythm, a flow, the experience of really cultivating a practice, and this can be something as simple as like 5 minutes a day to start. Um, that in itself can really pay huge dividends.
I love that. And how did you start your whole mindfulness journey? Just how did was it early on in life that you learned about this?
Wow, that's a really good question, and and there's a big story around that, and I'll try to do my best to be as succinct in my way of telling it. But when I was younger, probably between the ages of around 9 to 11, so about a 2 year period, I grew up and I loved playing sports and I loved just being active. I was one of those kids. And for a period, during that period of time, I started to experience very debilitating migraine headaches.
Mm,
And the only way for me to describe it, they only occurred whenever I would do physical activities where my heart rate would increase past a certain threshold or past a certain limit.
mhm.
And what would happen is my brain would actually start pulsating. And the only way I can describe it, and this may be a bit graphic, but it literally it felt like somebody was hitting me upside the head with a baseball bat. And I'm in my elementary years, in fourth, fifth grade, and I would drop to my knees sometimes, and I would be screaming, I would be
Oh,
shouting, I would just feel this immense pain. And I went to a lot of different doctors and had my head examined and had all these different things that were specialists who were looking at my brain, kind of
yeah.
wondering and trying to figure out what was going on. And what occurred for me back then, this is before knowing what mindfulness was, what meditation, what body awareness was when these experiences would happen, I would close my eyes and I would begin to focus on my breath. And that was the only way for my heart rate to subside and to become lower and my nervous system to begin to settle. So,
Mm,
before, this was 20 over 25 years ago. Around this particular time, I didn't know what mindfulness was. I didn't know what meditation. I didn't know what nervous system. I didn't have that awareness at that point, but I knew my body was communicating to me when it was overwhelmed, when it was overstimulated, when I was having these abnormal type of head pulsations,
yeah.
to actually close my eyes, to focus on my breath, to bring a sense of stillness to, my whole entire body. And I like to joke around, like I was meditating or doing a mindfulness practice when I was 9 years old without even knowing it.
Yeah.
And, at that point it was for, a deep level of survival just because of the amount of pain that I was in.
Yeah.
But fast forward, and now it's I believe everything happens, for a reason. And some of
Mhm.
these experiences, they can be great teachers and lessons. And fast forward over 2 decades after, and that's something that is really a deep part of my essence, my teaching, my coaching, and just kind of the one of the gifts that I share and help others in cultivating.
That's amazing. What's so weird is I've had exactly the same happen to me when I was a kid. I had terrible migraines ever since I was in kindergarten, and
Mm,
I had this that's also how I first meditated too, is my mom took me to all these different doctors and no one could figure out, but I did biofeedback where they attach these electrodes to my brain, and to try to reduce the migraines, I had to deep breathe and
mm,
try to relax, and it was all monitored on the screen how well I was doing mindfulness and relaxing.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
crazy crazy synchronicity right there.
it is. Yeah. And for me, it was, I think now maybe environmental kind of sensitivity the migraines were from, but I'm not really sure still. But it's interesting that it seems so horrible at the time, but just talking to you, maybe it was a teacher somehow to come back to circle around to this later in life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a I ended up actually having a tumor the size of a grapefruit. So
Oh,
we're talking about the
wow.
size of a grapefruit, and this tumor was actually it was in my lower abdomen. So,
Oh,
after having all these tests for years,
mm,
at one point I actually needed to go to the emergency room
yeah.
one day after Little League baseball tryouts because the headache,
Mm,
when as it normally went away after kind of focusing on certain practices, it
mhm,
ended up not going away. and I
Yeah.
started to feel some pain in my stomach. So I went to the emergency room, and then
Mhm.
they ran tests on my stomach because I was feeling pain there. And then that's when they saw this abnormal mass that was there.
Wow.
And I had this pretty invasive surgery. I had this tumor removed, and then I also I had my I don't know if we'll go into the physiology of the anatomy or physiology of the body, but I had my left adrenal gland removed. And
Hmm.
for those out there who may not be familiar with the adrenal glands are two like grape shaped glands that sit on top of our kidneys, and their primary function in the body is to regulate stress, whether that stress is mental, emotional, physical. Um, Anytime we are in a stress state, our bodies naturally produce cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and that comes from the adrenals. And what was happening in my experience was my this tumor that I mentioned, and unfortunately it was benign, but this tumor was attached to one of my adrenals. So whenever I was having these headaches, I was receiving this shot of adrenaline that was going to my brain and going into my bloodstream, which was causing the super high levels of cortisol to be excreted from my adrenals. So again, fast forward, I ended up having, my left adrenal removed, and the body comes with two. And so from that age of 11, without knowing anything about stress or knowing anything about nervous system or kind of how to take care of the mind, the body, how everything was interconnected, um, as someone who's already more in the highly sensitive, empathic realm, I was even more of that and needed to be even more mindful on, what are my thoughts, mindful of what foods am I putting into my body, mindful of how my sleep is, how are my relationships, what professional work am I doing, um, without having the awareness then. But then, as I mentioned before, it's beautiful how everything happens for a reason. um, Fast forward to today, and it's a big part of my work and my support as well.
Beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad they figured that out. I I first realized that my dad is a highly sensitive man by talking to you. It just didn't click until I kind of put the pieces together of the wait, my dad only likes listening to certain kind of music and has to leave the room if it's a music that he doesn't like and things like that. And I'm wondering, are there a lot of men you feel like that are highly sensitive that don't realize it? And do you ever kind of help them to realize that? Or do people come to you already knowing that they're already highly sensitive usually?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I'll give you a two-part answer because the answer to both is the short answer is yes on both ends.
Okay.
But what I have seen and what I recognize with many men who may already have an awareness of themselves being more highly sensitive is that they recognize the importance of what I like to call creating a life ecosystem. So maybe
Mhm.
they're at this stage where they honor and recognize, what, I am a highly sensitive person. Maybe they've read, one of the books, or they've are able to put these pieces and these themes together throughout their life that has really created more of a deeper embodied awareness of that. So they are on the path of really, looking towards um, creating a life that is in deep harmony with that. So there's that piece. And then on the other side, there are men who are really disconnected from their bodies. And maybe this can come sometimes from just overworking, working high amounts of hours, maybe not getting enough rest, maybe not being really in tune with what agrees to the body on a nutritional level. And within these men, um, sometimes what ends up happening is when they are able to slow down and able to kind of have someone be, whether it be a mirror or kind of a support system around them, they're able for the first time over time to really see what's true and what's in harmony and alignment with their bodies. And once they're able to see that, and there's a new, more balanced baseline, then they're able to, and not all the time, but they're able to see, and their nervous systems are balanced and integrated enough to be able to notice, like, oh, okay, this is how my body operates at its best. And since I know myself and I'm having this awareness of my body and what my triggers are and what causes stress to me, it's like this huge light bulb goes off where then they're able to see, you know what, this has probably been a part of my being, a part of my expression since I was a little kid, since I came into this world.
Mm.
But I just haven't had the awareness. I've been moving so fast, or I've been kind of following a script that, you know, maybe society has put out there that I thought was the story or the version of me. And, they've reached that point where they, that, as I mentioned, that light bulb goes off, and it's like it's a night and day difference to how they view themselves. And maybe they
Mhm.
begin to recognize and notice, if they are indeed highly sensitive, just the importance of creating more mindfulness, more intention, more presence, and more of a lifestyle that really is in alignment within, you know, operating at their best and into their own natural, more balanced rhythm.
Beautiful, I love it. One thing that was coming to mind too around tuning into your body is that in school we're taught not to listen to the messages in our body, and that we have to eat snack is at 10 a.m. and
Mm.
you arrive at 7:40. And I know I work in the public schools too, and if someone has to go to the bathroom, there's a sign out sheet and it has to be at a certain time. So I feel like sometimes we have to relearn to listen to our body and what messages we're
Yeah,
getting.
I never even thought of that. That makes so much sense. How, as kids, or we grow up and we're in school, and we need some of that structure, to kind of
Yes.
know and move to a degree that, is healthy, or to a degree that is systematic, for lack
Yes.
of better terms. But how,
Mhm.
what just came to me as an insight from what you just said, Sarah, is the possibility of, creating those neural connections and those habits from a young age of, and the body responding to that. This is,
Yes.
okay, I need to be hungry at this time because this is the time that, I have lunch. And the body
Mhm.
has so much inner wisdom and intelligence, to be able to adapt and to kind of mold into whatever it is that, where whatever cues it is that we're like commanding of it. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's really fascinating to hear you mention that.
Yeah. I'm really curious just what the whole experience is when you're working with men who are realizing that they're highly sensitive and kind of working through it. I mean, not talking about specific people, but just what is the process that people go through that you find?
Hmm. Well, as far as a process, it's I can try to answer some of that, but each person is so uniquely different,
Okay.
so uniquely different. I've worked with, in the past, I've worked with teenagers from 14, 16 years old up to men in their 60s. Some
Mm.
are
Mhm.
in the sports space, some of them are architects, doctors, um, corporate executives. And while there are certain threads that in the human experience just, you know, may, um, may be commonalities, of all of them, there are so many differences, and it
Mhm,
depends really on meeting someone where they're at. And I will say, I think one of the biggest experiences are kind of the individuals who I tend to attract and I tend to work with. They tend to be, um, they already have this sense of, they are self-motivated. They are leaders within their, whether it's their organizations, whether it's nonprofit, corporate. Maybe they're entrepreneurs and they're out doing aspects on their own, and they have like reached this point where they're so used to putting out a lot of their own energy towards, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's their profession, whether it's, always kind of having this heartful disposition to share and to care for others, that they've reached this point where they desire, someone to kind of be a stand and someone to be this type of mirror, or you know in a sense, coach
mhm,
slash mentor.
mhm,
And that can show up in many different ways. Sometimes people have individuals, they may be lighting the candle at both ends. They're just moving at a pace that maybe they've been moving at that pace most of their lives, and they've been kind of going, and their body is used to it, but at the same time, maybe their body is breaking down,
yeah,
and they recognize they just want to create more peace, more ease, more flow, more of a sense of feeling deeper levels of presence, and feeling like they can, to a certain degree, be centered within their minds. Maybe their
mhm,
thoughts are scattered and they have just all these different things that are going on. And they say one of the best gifts or the best things that you can share with others, and this goes for anyone, are the aspects that are most either needed or that have been the most vulnerable, or the most the 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 most challenging aspects within your own life. And I was
mm,
that person, working 60, 70 hours a week, being very focused on work, and focused on doing, and focused on kind of so many other people at times,
mhm,
that I was disconnected from my own body. And
yeah,
being disconnected from my own body created over time burnout after burnout,
mm,
exhaustion, needing to feel like I was running into these patterns or these themes all the time, with just feeling tired.
yeah,
And over time, recognizing, for myself, through having a coach and a mentor, that I was not taking good care of my body. I was
mm,
not sustainably moving at a pace that, one, I could keep up with, and two, that was healthy for my more sensitive and um, more kind of slower disposition that comes more naturally when I'm operating from my natural rhythm. So a big part of my to answer your question, a big part of what I assist and what I support, highly sensitive men, as well as others with, is really slowing down to a degree of being able to see what's true for that individual. And from knowing what's true, being able to, have this vision and being able to tap into some type of mission. Because if we don't have some sense of a purpose while we're here, it's even more easy to kind of go into those patterns of doing overload, and feeling
mm,
a sense of overwhelm, feeling a sense of burnout, feeling a sense of what am I doing? So a big
mhm,
part of my work is helping people not only identify their gifts, their strengths, what is it that they want, and how they want to impact the world and impact the lives of others, but being able to sustainably create and build that in their whole entire lives from all angles, whether it's professional careers, whether it's relationships, and whether it's ultimately with their personal health as well.
Mhm. Super important. I love that perspective. How could someone who has a highly sensitive person in their life, a highly sensitive man, and they see that person burning out, how could they help or
Mm.
support? What's the best thing that they could do?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I find useful for different clients has been, um, one of those has been really, and I know, if other people are watching this may already have familiarity with it, but I know the book, The Highly Sensitive Person by Dr. Elaine Aron, that has been a very powerful entry point to highly sensitive men, in my experience.
Mm,
And if it's someone like a loved one or someone you care for, and you feel like, man, like this is what I'm seeing or what I'm witnessing, this I want to help them, or I really want to, offer something that could, if they're open for it, could create a deeper level of awareness. And maybe that awareness could create, just a new way of being or approaching, their health and their sense of the pace in which they move. There's that book that I believe is very helpful. It's extremely helpful in my journey, many years back. And then there's also the highly sensitive person test as well, which one can take from that actual website, by the same author, which is very short. It's like 15, maybe 15 questions. It doesn't take any more than a couple of minutes to take out. And those two aspects, just on an awareness level, because once the awareness is opened up and there's a sense of someone feeling, for a lot of men, who may be more in the highly sensitive disposition, there's one very, very big aspect that these men desire and they crave. And depending on the environments in which they grew up in, is something that they may also have subtle levels of fear or discomfort or uncomfortability around. And that's permission. Permission to truly be themselves, permission for them knowing that they're okay and they're fine and they're loved just the way that they are. And being able to remove this mask, for lack of better terms. If there's this mask of feeling like there needs to be a certain bravado or machismo in order to blend in and fit in with others, being able to mindfully let that go and shed the layers and the processes and the emotions and the different aspects, on a mental level that may come up, but recognizing that from that sensitivity, that inner sensitivity, that there's a gift around that. A gift. There's
yeah.
only 15-20% of the population who are highly sensitive. And um, that includes men as well, you know? So men being able to have that awareness, being able to accept, embrace, and have permission, give themselves permission to really honor and own, who they are, then it just opens up so many more possibilities, and it opens up so many more areas where they can not only take care of themselves, but then be able to help and support and assist others in whatever shape, form or capacity they that is in alignment for them to do it.
Mm, love that. When you did kind of take that mask off in your own life and just come into yourself more and learn about mindfulness and kind of put out your purpose, what did you get pushback from the people around you, your community, your family, or I mean, did
None at
they
all. None at
did they
all.
accept that? I mean, what was
You
that
know,
like?
so I think what's a good short way to describe it, there was about a 2-year period that I was, some people call it the they call it the dark night of the soul. You know,
Yeah.
that's a period, a term that's been used. And during that period, it felt like everything was breaking down, or at least my perception at the time was things were breaking down. A intimate relationship was falling apart. There was my
Mm.
professional career that I had built up and that I had success in, and I was working for the number one valued sports franchise in the world. I was in a sales executive role, making six figures. On the society level, I had made it. And at the same time, there was this sense of something's not right.
Mhm.
Something I'm not necessarily feeling as if I'm that this is where I'm supposed to be, you
Mhm.
know. And there's kind of that cognitive dissonance that kind of goes back and forth. And as I was learning more about myself, learning more about the things that ultimately lit me up, the things that were in harmony with not only my interests but my health. What is it that I would love to do professionally? um, there were some drastic changes that were occurring not only inside of me, but it was occurring within my relationships and how I was also um, speaking and communicating with others. And and many people who are open to it, and or have dedicated, or I would like to say lifelong learners who are also growth mind oriented, they experience the same thing as far as you have this pivot, or you have this change that goes on within your life, and people are used to seeing you a certain way and kind of viewing you a certain way. And then if you shift and you drastically go through some sense of a transformation, it's not only you who are transforming, but the way in which you relate to other people and the relationships and the way that people may view you may still want to be the exact same as it was in the identity that maybe was formed, and how one may have perceived you before. So to answer the question, there was a period of time that there was different kind of conversations with family. Are you going are you going crazy? um what's this, you're not really an introvert, like some of this stuff doesn't make sense. But like, over time, there was definitely more of an embrace and more of a welcoming around that, which ultimately came from the essence of me owning it, owning myself, and owning some of the areas that I felt were insecurities before, or that I felt that I was ashamed of, and being able to say, no, this is beautiful. This is a
Mhm.
gift. This is an opportunity for me to recreate,
Mhm.
recreate the life, recreate myself, recreate uh, what's most in alignment and what's most in harmony for me. And naturally, once you go through that process and you're going through it, you start to, attract those who are seeing you and seeing you vibrate or operate from a certain lens. And just like with anything else, you continue to evolve and continue to grow, and relationships continue to evolve and continue to grow as well.
Definitely. Neat. And how do you bring in mindfulness? You're living in Costa Rica, probably traveling around a lot. And what kind of practice do you do every morning, say when you wake up, just to inspire the
Hmm.
listener?
Yeah, so I'll say mindfulness for me, it's life. It's a way of being,
Hmm.
and that's a big part of my life, my work, of what I feel called to support others in, while I'm here on this planet. And here in Costa Rica, I chose to relocate here, originally being from the US, because, some years ago, when I was traveling, I love traveling. I've been to almost 30 different countries. I spent some time in South America, and I loved the simplicity. I loved the connection to nature. I loved um, some of the aspects around really, you know, being deeply connected to nature, So Costa Rica, and this is a very short and buttoned down version of that. Costa Rica is a beautiful country and a beautiful space to really harness that, at least in my experience with what I love. And, even as I'm connecting and speaking with you at the time, I'm in my backyard. I'm outside. It's sunshine all year. Temperature anywhere from 85 around the high full time year round. Just being in nature within the mountains and trees and fresh air and this sense of stillness, this sense of simplicity. Um, so that answers that. And as far as practices, you know, what I've found useful and what I also share with different clients is a process around who are you being and who are you creating yourself to be.
Mm,
And the short version of that is creating a daily practice of really verbalizing and being with yourself, which is centered around I am statements.
mm,
And not only incorporating that on a daily basis, I can share this a little bit with you. I unconditional love. I am pure creativity and effortless inspiration. I am the embodiment of inner peace. I am beautiful music. I am rhythmic dance. I am that I live in flow. These aspects of who it is that I am and what I'm creating in the world from that foundation of who it is that I am, that I believe and I know that I am.
mhm,
And also some other things around meditation, some other things around movement each morning, whether it be practices that could be centered around yoga, calisthenics, some sense of body movement, and really incorporating and cultivating these things on a daily basis, and how that has been something that has really elevated and uplifted a huge portion of my life. And again, how it comes back to it's it's who I am. It's a
mhm.
part of my being and what I feel like I can express and who I'm able to show up as each day.
Beautiful. Yeah, it just sounds so gorgeous to be in that setting, and I'm so jealous because we have 2 feet of snow today. We've, yeah, we've had a big snowstorm.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of where I'm from in Texas. I know that there's quite a bit of not quite snow, but there's a cold front. It's pretty
Yes,
cold. And
yes. Oh,
yeah.
yeah, they must really not be used to that in Texas at all.
Texas, it's yes and no. The weather can be, it can have sometimes its inconsistencies, but you do, for lack of better years, you do actually have all the seasons there. Whereas
Okay,
where I'm at, it's
yeah,
more of just dry season and and rainy season. And even in rainy season, you still have sunlight every single
okay.
day.
Wow, that's so amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I just love your message of slowing down. My grandmother always used to tell me that when I was younger, and it's just one of those things that's so important to keep coming back to. So, thank you so much for sharing that with everyone, and I really appreciate you speaking with us today.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you for this opportunity to connect and to just share with others from all around the world. And um, yeah, hopefully that some of this has been useful, or there's been some nuggets that, or at least one nugget that one may be able to take and kind of experience with themselves.
Absolutely. How would people get in touch with you if they would like to know more about your work?
Yeah, so my website is probably the easiest way, which is just my first and last name, brandonbennett.com. So BrandonBennett.com. On there, I have tons of blogs on there where I talk about some of the things that I've been sharing here around slowing down, around mindfulness, around creating a lifestyle that one loves. Um, and Also, I'm on Instagram as well, which would just be my first name, Brandon, the initial B, and then my last name, Bennett, is my Instagram handle. Those are probably the two best ways to get in contact or to check out what I'm up to.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Take care.